They handed my brother $250,000 for a startup that didn't exist, while telling me to take the bus to my minimum wage shift. 10 years later, they were sitting in the lobby of my company, begging the receptionist for 5 minutes of my time. In the Mitchell household, there were two distinct realities. There was the reality my older brother, Liam, lived in a world paved with endless second chances, blank checks and standing ovations for doing the bare minimum. Then there was my reality. I was the understudy in my own life, the background character whose only purpose was to not take up too much space or drain the resources reserved for the genius of the family. My parents, David and Beatrice, weren't wealthy. My father was a middle manager at a logistics firm, and my mother was a dental hygienist. We were solidly middle class, living in a 4-bedroom colonial in a mundane Chicago suburb. But if you looked at their bank statements, you would think Liam was the crown prince of a small nation. When Liam turned 16, he got a brand new Jeep Wrangler. When I turned 16, my father handed me a bus pass and a lecture on the value of a strong work ethic. When Liam tanked his SATs, my parents paid $3,000 for a premium private tutor who practically took the test for him. When I scored in the 98th percentile by studying torn prep books I bought at a thrift store, my mother briefly glanced at the letter, said, "That's nice, Chloe," and went back to ironing Liam's polo shirts. I used to rationalize it. I told myself it was because Liam was the firstborn, or because he was a boy, or because he was genuinely brilliant, and I just couldn't see it. He was charismatic, I'll give him that. Liam possessed the kind of effortless golden retriever charm that made people empty their wallets and suspend their disbelief. But beneath the blinding smile, he was deeply, fundamentally lazy. The fracture that ultimately shattered my relationship with my family happened during the spring of my senior year of high school. It was 2014. I had just received an acceptance letter to my dream school, a top-tier business program in New York. I had secured enough scholarships and grants to cover 80% of the tuition. All I needed was a $10,000 co-signed loan to bridge the gap for my first year. Just a signature. I wasn't even asking them to pay it, just to back me up so the bank would approve an 18-year-old with no credit history. I planned a special dinner to ask them. I cooked my mother's favorite chicken piccata, set the table, and laid the acceptance letter next to my father's plate. Before I could even broach the subject, Liam burst through the front door. He had dropped out of his second semester of community college 3 weeks prior, citing creative differences with his professors. "Mom, Dad, sit down," Liam announced, his eyes manic with artificial excitement. "I've cracked it. I have the idea that's going to make us millions." My parents leaned in, utterly captivated. Liam proceeded to pitch an app called Aero. From what I could gather, it was a convoluted social media platform that integrated crypto mining with fitness tracking. It made absolutely no sense. He had no code, no wireframes, no business plan, and zero technical skills. All he had was a pitch deck he paid a freelancer on Fiverr to design. "I need seed money," Liam declared confidently. "The big VC firms in Silicon Valley won't look at you unless you have a working prototype. I need to move to California, hire a developer, and get this off the ground." Is a guaranteed unicorn. My father's chest swelled with pride. "How much, son?" "How want 50,000, Liam said without blinking. I nearly choked on my water. $150,000? "Are you out of your mind?" I snapped, the silence in the room suddenly deafening. My mother shot me a lethal glare. "Chloe, do not stifle your brother's ambition with your pessimism. Half. He doesn't even know how to code," I argued, my voice trembling. "He failed basic algebra. You can't give him that kind of money." "We aren't giving it to him, Chloe," my father said, his tone icy. "We are investing in him. We're taking out a home equity loan." I stared at them in horror. They were willing to remortgage the house we grew up in for a delusion. Sensing the window closing, I shoved my acceptance letter forward. "Dad, I got into the Stern program. I just need you to co-sign a $10,000 student loan. I'll pay every cent back. I have a job lined up at the campus library. Humboldt. My father looked at the letter, then pushed it back toward me. Chloe, we just committed our available credit to Liam's startup. We can't take on the liability of a student loan right now. Besides, he added, offering a condescending smile, you're a smart girl. You don't need a fancy New York school. Go to the local community college, get a part-time job, and figure it out. It builds character. Figure it out. Tears pricked my eyes. You're funding a vacation to California for him, and you want me to figure it out? Your brother has a vision, my mother interjected, placing a comforting hand on Liam's arm. You need to understand that not everything is about you, Chloe. Liam is going to change the world. You should be supporting him. I looked at the three of them, a closed circle, the unified front of delusion. Liam caught my eye and offered a microscopic, victorious smirk. In that exact moment, something inside me died, but something else ignited. A cold, quiet, terrifyingly focused rage. Okay, I said softly, standing up from the table. I'll figure it out. 2 days later, I packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases. I didn't go to New York. I couldn't afford it. Instead, I took a Greyhound bus to Austin, Texas, a city I had never been to, simply because I read online that it was a booming tech hub with cheap rent on the outskirts. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Don't call me unless someone dies. They didn't call. My first 2 years in Austin were a masterclass in survival. The romanticized idea of building character through poverty is a lie sold by people who have never had to choose between paying the electric bill and eating dinner. I rented a windowless room in a basement apartment, shared with 3 strangers. I slept on a twin mattress I found on the curb, sanitized with a gallon of cheap bleach. I worked 3 jobs, opening shifts as a barista at 4:30 a.m., afternoons doing data entry for an insurance firm, and weekends waiting tables at a high-end steakhouse. I lived off discarded pastries from the coffee shop and plain pasta. But I didn't just work, I observed. At the steakhouse, I served venture capitalists, real estate moguls, and tech founders. I listened to how they spoke, what they valued, and the problems they complained about. The common thread I kept hearing from local business owners was the agonizing difficulty of managing localized, automated supply chain logistics for mid-sized e-commerce brands. It was a boring, unsexy problem, and unsexy problems are where the real money is hiding. I started teaching myself software development during my commute. I'd traded leftover steaks from the restaurant to a brilliant, socially anxious freelance developer named Arthur, who lived in my building, in exchange for him tutoring me in back-end architecture. During this time, the updates from my family came entirely through social media. Liam had indeed moved to California. His Instagram was a nauseating highlight reel of rented yachts, VIP bottle service at clubs in Los Angeles, and expensive dinners. He branded himself as a tech CEO and visionary. Every post was accompanied by hashtags like #grind and #hustle. Meanwhile, my mother was constantly commenting, "So proud of our boy. Keep building that empire." I knew for a fact they were bleeding dry. The $150,000 home equity loan wouldn't last a year with Liam's burn rate. My breaking point, the moment that permanently severed whatever lingering emotional ties I had to my parents, came right before my 21st birthday. My grandmother, before she passed away when I was 12, had explicitly left a vintage Cartier watch and a pair of diamond drop earrings in a trust for me, to be given to me when I turned 21. It was the only connection I had left to the only family member who ever made me feel special. A month before my birthday, I called my mother. It was the first time I had spoken to her in nearly 3 years. "Mum," I said, my voice tight, "I'm turning 21 soon. I'd like to give you my address so you can send Grandma's jewelry." There was a long, suffocating silence on the line. "Chloe," she finally said, her voice dripping with an uncomfortable defensiveness. We actually don't have those items anymore. My blood ran cold. What do you mean you don't have them? They were in the safe deposit box. They were mine. Well, legally, they were in my possession until your birthday, she rationalized quickly. Liam ran into a slight cash flow issue with Aro. The developers were threatening to walk if they didn't get paid. We had to liquidate some assets to keep his dream alive. You know how important this is to our family. I'm sure when Liam is a billionaire, he'll buy you 10 Cartier watches. They pawned my grandmother's legacy to pay for Liam's lifestyle. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. The absolute sheer audacity of the betrayal crystallized my ambition into something dangerous. I hope he was worth it, I whispered, and hung up the phone. I changed my phone number the very next day. I took the rage and channeled it into my work. By year 3, Arthur and I had built a functioning prototype of our B2B logistics software, which we called Nexus Flow. Data wasn't flashy. It didn't have crypto integration or social features, but it saved mid-sized e-commerce warehouses roughly 22% in operational costs by predicting inventory bottlenecks. I took a massive risk. I quit 2 of my jobs, keeping only the night shifts at the steakhouse, and spent every waking daylight hour cold-calling warehouse managers. For 6 months I heard nothing but "No, we're busy and stop calling us." Then, a breakthrough. A regional distributor in Texas agreed to a beta test because their current system had crashed during the holiday rush. Nexus Flow didn't just work. It optimized their entire floor plan within 2 weeks. They signed a $50,000 annual licensing contract. With that case study, the floodgates opened. We signed 3 more clients the next month, then 10. Then we secured a $2 million seed round from one of the venture capitalists I used to serve ribeyes to at the steakhouse. By the time I was 24, Nexus Flow was generating $4 million in annual recurring revenue. I bought Arthur out of his half of the company. Amicably, he wanted to retire to a cabin in Montana and code video games, and scaled the business ruthlessly. By 26, we were a $40 million company. I bought a penthouse in downtown Austin overlooking the river. I had a team of 50 employees. I was rich, quiet, and completely invisible to the people who shared my DNA. As my star rose in total silence, Liam's fake empire was collapsing loudly. Aero never launched. You can't launch an app when you spend the development budget on leased Lamborghinis and PR agencies to get you featured in pay-to-play top 30 under 30 online magazines. From what I discovered through a private investigator I hired just to keep tabs on the impending disaster, Liam's facade finally broke when a minor investor sued him for fraud. It turned out Liam hadn't just blown my parents' home equity loan. He had taken money from amateur angel investors and spent it on personal expenses. To keep their golden boy out of federal prison, my parents did the unthinkable. They drained their entire 401k retirement accounts, took crushing penalties, and paid off Liam's defrauded investors out of court. David and Beatrice Mitchell were now in their early 60s. They had no savings, a second mortgage they couldn't afford, and a son who had moved back into his childhood bedroom, claiming he was depressed and suffering from founder's burnout. They had sacrificed everything for the son they chose, and the daughter they told to figure it out was about to become their only hope. The funny thing about extreme success is that it leaves a paper trail you can no longer control. For years I had kept my digital footprint virtually non-existent. There were no press releases with my face on them, no flashy Instagram posts, no arrogant podcasts about my morning routine. I let Nexus Flow speak for itself, and I hid behind corporate LLCs and non-disclosure agreements. But when Nexus Flow acquired a major regional competitor in a $15 million cash deal, anonymity was no longer an option. Forbes ran a piece in their tech section titled "The Silent Architect of E-Commerce: How 26-year-old Chloe Mitchell Built a $40 million Logistics Empire Out of a Basement." The article featured a high-resolution photo of me standing in our new downtown Austin headquarters, wearing a tailored charcoal suit, looking out over the city skyline. I knew the moment the article went live that the clock had started ticking. I just didn't expect them to move so fast. It was a rainy Tuesday morning 3 weeks after the publication. I was in the middle of a quarterly projection meeting with my CFO, a brilliant former Wall Street analyst named Harrison, when my desk phone buzzed. It was Brenda, my executive receptionist. Brenda was a terrifyingly efficient, no-nonsense woman in her 50s who guarded my schedule like a fortress. "Miss Mitchell," Brenda said, her tone tightly controlled, "there are 3 individuals in the lobby who bypassed security by tailgating a delivery driver. They are currently refusing to leave. The older couple claims to be your parents, and the younger man says he's your brother. Should I call building security or Austin PD?" A cold, heavy stone dropped into my stomach. I looked at the glass wall of my office, out toward the reception area. "Hold off on the police, Brenda. I'll be right out." I smoothed my jacket, took a deep breath that tasted like pure adrenaline, and walked out of the double blast doors. There they were, the architects of my trauma, standing on the Italian marble floors of the company I built with the scraps they left me. The physical change in them was jarring. David, my father, who always prided himself on his sharp posture and golf club tan, looked hollowed out. His shoulders were slumped, his suit jacket was a decade out of style, and his hair had thinned to a wispy gray. Beatrice, my mother, clutched a cheap faux leather handbag defensively to her chest. The wrinkles around her mouth were deeply set, etched by years of chronic stress and financial terror. And then there was Liam, the golden boy, the visionary. He looked awful. He had gained at least 40 pounds, his face puffy and flushed. He was wearing a designer hoodie that had clearly seen better days, nervously shifting his weight from foot to foot. The effortless, arrogant charisma that used to radiate from him was completely extinguished. The moment my mother saw me, her eyes widened. She took a step forward, a trembling, artificial smile stretching across her face. "Chloe, oh, my beautiful girl," she gasped, dropping her purse and rushing forward with her arms outstretched for a hug. I didn't move. I simply raised one hand, palm out, stopping her dead in her tracks 3 feet away from me. "Do not touch me," I said. My voice wasn't raised, but it echoed in the cavernous lobby. My mother recoiled as if I had slapped her. "Chloe, please. It's been so long. We've missed you so much." "You haven't missed me, Beatrice," I replied, using her first name deliberately. "You missed the opportunity to get in on the ground floor. What are you doing here?" My father stepped in, trying to summon the old authoritative patriarchal tone he used to put me in my place. "Now, Chloe, that is no way to speak to your mother. We drove 20 hours straight from Chicago to see you. Reread the article. We are incredibly proud of you. We always knew you had this kind of drive in you." I actually laughed out loud. It was a harsh, scraping sound. "You knew I had it in me. Dad, 5 years ago you told me I wasn't smart enough for Stern and that taking the bus to a minimum wage job would build character. You didn't know anything. You're here because you're broke." Liam finally spoke up, his voice whiny and defensive. "Come on, Schlo. Don't be like that. We're family. We need to talk." Privately, I looked at the 3 of them. I could have had security throw them out right then. It would have been easy. But I realized, looking at their desperate, hungry eyes, that throwing them out wouldn't give me the closure I needed. I needed to hear them say it. I needed to watch them beg. "Brenda," I called out without looking away from them. "Cancel my 11 a.m. Bring 3 black coffees to conference room B." I turned on my heel and walked toward the glass-walled boardroom. They scrambled to follow me like stray dogs following a butcher. Once the heavy acoustic door clicked shut, The silence in the room was deafening. I sat at the head of the long oak table. They huddled together on the opposite side, as far away from me as the room allowed. "Speak," I commanded. My father cleared his throat, adjusting his collar nervously. "Chloe, things have been difficult back home. The economy, you know. Inflation. It's been hard on everyone. Don't give me a macroeconomic thesis, Dad." "I know exactly what happened," I said smoothly. "I know Liam blew the $150,000 on bottle service and leased cars. I know he got sued by the angel investors he defrauded. I know you liquidated your 401k to settle out of court so your son wouldn't face federal wire fraud charges. I know you have a second mortgage on the house that is 90 days past due, and the bank is initiating foreclosure proceedings next week." But so, they stared at me in absolute paralyzed horror. Liam's jaw practically hit the table. How do you know all of that?" My mother whispered, the blood draining from her face. "I run a data logistics empire, Mum. Information is literally my currency," I lied. I had actually paid a private investigator named Thomas a small fortune to keep a dossier on them. But they didn't need to know that. "I know everything." "Then you know we are out of options," my father said, his voice cracking. The authoritative facade crumbled completely. "Chloe, we are going to lose the house. The house you grew up in. We have no retirement. We have nothing. You done incredibly well for yourself. $40 million. That's what the magazine said. We just need a little help to get back on our feet." "How much?" I asked, leaning back in my chair. $400,000, Liam blurted out eagerly, leaning over the table. "That pays off the house, clears the remaining legal fees, and leaves about 50 grand. I have a new idea, Chloe. It's an AI-driven marketing metric tool. If you could just front the 50 grand as seed money, I swear I'd give you a 20% equity stake." "Shut up, Liam," I snapped, the sheer force of my voice making him flinch physically. "You don't know the first thing about AI, you don't know the first thing about marketing, and your equity is worth less than the toilet paper in my employee restrooms. Do not insult my intelligence by pitching me in my own boardroom." My mother burst into tears, real ugly, desperate tears. "Chloe, please. He's your brother. We are your parents. We gave you life. We raised you. You have so much, and we have nothing. Please don't let us become homeless." I watched my mother cry, searching myself for even a flicker of sympathy. There was none, only a cold emptiness where love used to live. Without a word, I unbuttoned my sleeve and rolled it back. The harsh boardroom lights caught the gleam instantly, a vintage Cartier Parther watch paired with diamond earrings I had remade into a necklace. My mother's sobbing stopped, her eyes fixed on my wrist, terror replacing grief. "So you recognize this, Beatrice?" I asked quietly. She couldn't answer. "When you pawned Grandma's jewelry," I continued, gesturing toward Liam, "you thought it was gone for good. But those pieces were traceable. I found them. London. Dubai. It cost me $85,000 to reclaim what was mine." I leaned forward. "You chose him. You gambled everything and lost." "We made a mistake," my father said, voice breaking. "You can fix this, please." "Mercy," I repeated. "I'll give you exactly what you gave me." I pulled a legal pad closer and uncapped my pen. "I'm not giving you 400,000. Not a cent." But I wrote 3 lines, then slid the paper across the table. "I own a massive warehouse facility outside of Dallas," I explained in a flat, corporate tone. "We are currently hiring entry-level data entry clerks and floor sweepers. The starting pay is $18 an hour. It includes basic health insurance but no retirement matching for the first year. You will have to clock in at 6 a.m. You will get 1 30-minute lunch break." They stared at the paper as if it were covered in toxic waste. You're offering us jobs?" My father stammered, bewildered. But what about the house? Let the bank foreclose, I said coldly. Move to Dallas, rent a cheap apartment. Ride the bus. Figure it out. Are you insane? Liam exploded, his face turning a dangerous shade of crimson. You want our parents, 60-year-old people, to work in a warehouse? You want me to sweep floors? I am a founder. I am an entrepreneur. I can't do manual labor. It will ruin my brand. You don't have a brand, Liam. Liam, you have a criminal record and a foreclosure notice, I fired back. And to be clear, Liam, the data entry jobs are for David and Beatrice. You failed high school algebra. I wouldn't trust you near my data systems. If you want a paycheck from my company, you will put on a high-vis vest, take a broom, and sweep the loading docks for 12 hours a day. I won't do it, Liam screamed, slamming his fists on the table. You selfish, vindictive, arrogant little bitch. You owe us. Security, I said, pressing the button on the intercom built into the table. Less than 10 seconds later, the heavy doors opened, and 2 massive security guards stepped into the room. My brother is leaving, I said calmly. Escort him out of the building. If he resists, call the police and press trespassing charges. Mom, Dad. Let's go, Liam demanded, storming toward the door. We don't need her. We'll figure something else out. But my parents didn't move. They sat frozen in their chairs, staring at the legal pad with the warehouse address written on it. Mom, Dad. Liam paused at the door, his bravado faltering. My father looked at Liam, then looked at me. The realization of his absolute defeat finally settled into his bones. There was no secret bailout coming. There was no hidden millionaire friend. There was only the crushing weight of reality. We'll take the jobs, Chloe, my father whispered, his voice completely broken. We'll be in Dallas on Monday. Not that, Hey, Liam stared at them horrified before spitting on the glass door and storming out, the security guards right on his heels. I stood up, adjusting my watch. Report to the floor manager, Marco. Don't mention my name to him. He doesn't care who you are. If you are late, you will be fired. If you complain, you will be fired. I walked out of the boardroom without looking back. That was 3 years ago. Hard karma is a slow, methodical machine, but it never misses its mark. My parents moved to a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a rundown suburb of Dallas. Every morning at 5 a.m., my father, who used to boast about his corner office, takes the public bus to my warehouse to scan barcodes for 8 hours a day. My mother, who used to brag about her son's imaginary millions to her country club friends, input serial numbers into a database until her wrists ache. They live entirely on their hourly wages. I do not speak to them. I do not send them holiday bonuses. They are employees' ID numbers 4090 and 4090. As for Liam, he refused to take the sweeping job. His pride wouldn't allow it. Without my parents there to fund his life, he tried to run another crypto scam, but this time, he messed with the wrong people. He is currently serving a 4-year sentence in a minimum security facility in Illinois for wire fraud. Sometimes when I'm standing on the balcony of my penthouse, looking out over the city I conquered, I think about the dinner where everything changed. I think about my father telling me to figure it out. I did, and I made sure they did too. If this story resonated with you, drop a like and subscribe for more deep dives into the harsh realities of family dynamics and self-made success. Hit the notification bells so you never miss an upload. Have you ever had to walk away from toxic family members to protect your peace? Share your experiences in the comments below. I read every single one of them. See you in the next video.